The first sign that something was wrong was not Sabine Mercer standing beside the Alpha King. It was the chair. Nora Whitmore had spent 3 years negotiating the winter accord, 5 months carrying the heir to Silver Vale, and most of that evening pretending her lower back did not ache beneath a silver-blue gown. She had expected to stand at Darius's right hand when the treaty was announced. Instead, a second chair sat beside the council dais, upholstered in royal black, exactly where Nora normally sat during state proceedings. Sabine occupied it. The great hall glittered beneath crystal lamps. Territorial alphas, ambassadors, commanders, and noble families filled the tables below the dais. More than 200 wolves had crossed winter roads to hear Silvervale announce the agreement, securing grain routes, military cooperation, and border access for another decade. Nora rested one hand beneath the curve of her 5-month pregnancy and looked at her husband. Alpha King Darius Vane stood at the center of the dais in a dark, formal coat. Tall, broad-shouldered, composed. He looked as he always did before a difficult declaration. Too calm. Their mate bond stirred beneath Nora's ribs, carrying a hard pulse of tension and resolve she could not fully interpret. Darius lifted one hand, and the hall quieted. "My friends, Silver Vale has survived because we have never confused tradition with good judgment." Nora's fingers tightened against her gown. That was not the opening they had written together. "The coming birth of my heir changes not only my family, but the future stability of this kingdom." A few heads turned toward Nora. Darius finally looked at her. "Nora has served Silvervale with distinction. No one in this hall has contributed more to our diplomatic strength." For one dangerous second, relief tried to rise inside her. Then he said, "But pregnancy has placed pressures on her that neither of us can responsibly ignore." The relief died. "Effective tonight, Nora Whitmore will step back from all active treaty negotiations and royal diplomatic authority until after the birth." Someone inhaled sharply near the Frostmere delegation. Nora did not move. Sabine rose from the black chair. Darius gestured toward her. "Sabine Mercer will serve as acting regent for pack affairs and assume temporary oversight of crown negotiations." A murmur moved through the room. Nora looked at Sabine once. Her expression was respectful. That was worse than triumph. Nora turned back to Darius. "You removed me from office." His jaw tightened. "This is not the place. You made it the place." Darius descended one step. "Nora, the warning was subtle. The Alpha Command was not." Her wolf reacted instinctively, answering mate and king at once. The bond tightened with pressure she could feel but not name. Nora did not need it to explain his intent. His public announcement, Sabine's chair, and the decision made without her were enough. Darius turned toward the royal clerk. "Present the order." An older man carried a sealed document to Nora. She opened it. No unsanctioned travel outside the capital, no independent diplomatic movement, no change of medical supervision without crown approval, no removal of the unborn royal heir from Silver Vale jurisdiction. Nora read the final line twice. "When did you sign this?" 3 days ago." The baby shifted beneath her palm. "And when were you planning to tell me?" Darius said nothing. That silence landed harder than the announcement. 3 mornings waking beside him, 3 nights with his hand resting over her stomach while their son moved beneath her skin. Yesterday, he had kissed her temple before leaving for council. All that time, the order had already carried his seal. "Nora," he said quietly, "you are carrying the future Alpha King. I will not apologize for protecting you both. Protecting us, yes, by taking away my work, temporarily, my right to travel, for your safety, my right to choose my healer, if necessary, and my right to leave." His face hardened. "If leaving places our son at risk, yes, there it was. Not our child, our son, spoken like a borderline." The mate bond surged so violently Nora nearly stepped toward him. Her wolf wanted proximity, reassurance, the familiar scent of cedar and winter rain, that had meant home for 7 years. Nora hated that her body still wanted what her mind could no longer trust. She reached for the silver ring on her right hand. Darius saw it. Nora. The royal oath ring had been placed on her finger the night she became Luna. Every treaty she had sworn for Silver Vale had been sealed beneath its crest. She pulled it free. The bond flared. Pain shot beneath her ribs. Darius came down another step. "Put it back on." Nora crossed to the council table and placed the ring beside the unopened treaty documents. The click of silver against stone carried farther than it should have. Darius stared at it. "If I am too unstable to speak for this kingdom," Nora said, "you should not need my oath to hold it together." His nostrils flared. "Do not turn this into a spectacle. You announced my incompetence to 200 people. I announced a temporary transfer of authority. You decided I was unfit before you decided I deserved a conversation." The bond twisted with a sudden change from him, something sharper, less controlled. Nora refused to interpret it for him. She stepped away. Darius lowered his voice. "Where are you going?" She looked at the man she had loved for 7 years, the mate her body still recognized, while every deliberate part of her wanted distance. Then she glanced at the order bearing his seal. "Then rule without my name." Nora turned. No one stopped her. Her heels struck the marble in measured beats as she crossed the great hall. Hundreds of eyes followed her, but she refused to hurry. Behind her, the mate bond stretched tighter with every step. At the doors, a chair scraped against the floor. Then another. Then a third. Nora stopped. 3 territorial alphas had risen from their tables. Darius's voice came from behind her. "Where are you going?" Alpha Brenner of Frostmere looked directly at the king. "Our oath was sworn to your Luna, your majesty." His gaze shifted to the silver ring on the council table. "Not your throne." The corridor outside the great hall felt colder. She kept walking. Behind the carved doors, voices rose, but the mate bond did not fade. It tightened beneath her ribs, carrying the raw pressure of distance without giving her anything useful enough to trust. Her wolf paced under her skin, confused by the instinct to return to the man who had just stripped her authority in front of half the kingdom. Nora pressed one hand to the wall when a cramp seized low across her abdomen. Not now. The pain passed after several breaths. She waited until the baby moved beneath her palm before continuing. At their private chambers, the nursery door stood open. A half-finished mobile hung above the cradle. Tiny silver wolves turning in the firelight. Darius had carved one himself and complained for days that its ears looked wrong. Nora had laughed until she cried. She did not laugh now. A knock sounded. "Nora?" Dr. Elian Hart entered after she answered. His eyes dropped to the hand over her stomach. "Any pain?" "One cramp." "Sit." He checked her pulse, blood pressure, and the baby's heartbeat with a small, enchanted listening disc. The rapid rhythm filled the room. "Healthy." Nora closed her eyes for 1 second. "Stress is elevated," Elian said. "But nothing suggests immediate danger. Rest tonight. Can I travel?" His expression sharpened. "Outside the capital? Yes, with proper escort and medical clearance." Before Elian closed his case, Nora glanced at her wedding band. She twisted it once, but did not remove it. The royal oath ring had represented her office. This ring represented something harder to name. 7 years did not disappear because one night had finally made the damage impossible to ignore. She left the band where it was. Leaving Darius would be difficult enough without pretending she no longer loved him. Darius entered without knocking. The bond changed instantly. The pressure eased enough to make Nora hate it. Her wolf recognized him before the rest of her did. Cedar, cold air, home. His gaze went to Elian's listening disc. "The baby?" "Fine," Elian said. "His mother needs less stress." Darius exhaled. "Good. Then we can talk." "We already did." "No." "You walked out. You announced a legal order controlling my movement before 200 witnesses. I made a temporary decision. You made it without me. For you." "No." For yourself. Darius stepped closer. I am not trying to imprison you. You signed an order saying I cannot leave without Crown approval. To protect the heir, our child. He is both. That is exactly the problem. The bond pulsed between them, warm and painful. Desire tangled with hurt, instinct with memory. None of it told Nora what choice to make. Darius lowered his voice. Stay tonight. We will revise the order privately. You still think the problem is how I reacted. That is not what I said. It is what you keep trying to fix. He reached for her hand, then stopped when she stepped back. For a moment, neither moved. Nora looked toward Elian. I want a neutral maternal jurisdiction filing prepared. Darius went still. And a legal separation. The words hollowed the room. His wolf flashed behind his eyes, silver and furious. The bond struck her chest hard enough to catch her breath. You do not mean that. I do. You are angry. Yes. You are hurt. Yes. And you are carrying my heir. Nora's expression changed. Darius corrected himself. Our son. Too late. She stood carefully. You protected yourself from the possibility that I might say no. He said nothing. That is what the order does, Darius. It makes my consent irrelevant. Darius looked at Elian. Leave us. No, Nora said. The room went silent. He stays. Something hard crossed Darius's face, but he nodded once. By dawn, Nora had packed one case. Clothing, personal correspondence, and medical papers. She left the ceremonial gowns, lunar jewels, and crown property behind. At the eastern staircase, a neutral court officer waited with 2 witnesses and a sealed writ. Darius was already there. You filed overnight. Yes, you are leaving the capital. Yes, the bond between them had become a constant ache. Darius looked toward the main doors. Close the eastern gate. The guards froze. The command rolled through the corridor with unmistakable Alpha authority. Captain Hale swallowed. Your Majesty, you heard me. The neutral officer stepped forward with the sealed writ. Temporary maternal jurisdiction has been transferred pending review. Captain Hale took it, read the first page, then raised his eyes. My king, I cannot legally detain her. Darius's face went still. Nora walked past him. He did not touch her. Outside, the iron gates began to move. For 1 second, Nora thought they were closing. Then Captain Hale raised his hand. The gates opened. Nora stepped through. She did not look back until the carriage crossed the boundary marker beyond the eastern road. The bond stretched so violently that pain drove the air from her lungs. A sharp surge of distress answered from the other end. Shock, loss, something raw enough to make her grip the edge of the seat. Then the distance widened. The bond did not tell her what Darius thought. It only told her that, for the first time since she had walked out of the Great Hall, he felt the separation too. The pain was mutual. The choice was still hers. By noon, 3 agreements had stopped moving. The first message reached Silvervale before breakfast. Frostmere would suspend its grain guarantee because the winter renewal window had closed without the Royal Lunar's affirmation. The second came from Northwatch, pausing intelligence exchange across the eastern border. The third arrived an hour later from Ashfall, refusing to rotate troops into Silvervale until treaty authority was clarified. Darius read all 3, standing at the council table where Nora's royal oath ring still rested. She did this, Sabine said. Darius looked up. Sabine stood where Nora had stood during 6 winters of negotiations, one hand resting on a stack of sealed dispatches. The timing is obvious. She leaves. 3 territories pull back before sunrise. She has been outside Crown jurisdiction for less than 12 hours. She had contacts before she left. Darius's jaw tightened. That possibility had already occurred to him, and he disliked hearing it spoken aloud. Find out whether she sent anything. By mid-morning, the answer came back. Nothing. No letters from Nora. No communication stones activated in her name. No courier records leaving the neutral estate where she was staying. Beta Rowan set a legal volume on the table. The agreements did not require her to withdraw them. Darius stared at him. They expired automatically when the renewal window closed at sunrise. Renewed by whom? Rowan hesitated. Darius's voice hardened. By whom? The legally recognized Royal Luna. Silence settled. Sabine opened one of the treaty files. Nora no longer controls diplomacy. She was stripped of active diplomatic authority last night. Rowan said. She was not stripped of her legal status as Luna. Until a formal separation ruling changes that, the oath clauses still recognize her. But once the Crown suspended her authority before she could issue this year's affirmations, no one else could sign in her place. Darius looked toward Nora's empty chair. He remembered signing the treaties. He remembered the ceremonial dinners, the speeches, the photographs. He did not remember that Nora had scheduled the winter affirmations for the morning after the convergence. Where are her working ledgers? An hour later, 6 leather-bound books covered the table in his private study. Darius opened the first. Nora's handwriting filled the margins. Renew Frostmere before first hard freeze. Brenner will pretend the grain numbers are flexible. They are not. He turned the page. Northwatch Intelligence Review do not schedule before noon. Darius sleeps badly after border command meetings. His thumb stopped. Another page. Ashfall troop rotation. Remind Darius to eat before negotiations. He gets impatient when he forgets. Darius sat down. The ledgers were supposed to be records of treaties, supply routes, border agreements, and diplomatic obligations. Instead, pieces of their marriage lived between the numbers. Move the Western delegation to the smaller chamber. His shoulder hurts in cold weather and he will never mention it. Do not let him agree to a second toast with Brenner. Darius hates this meeting. Keep it under 30 minutes. He had always believed Nora was good at diplomacy. That description suddenly felt insulting in its simplicity. She had not merely attended negotiations. She had anticipated problems before they reached him, remembered the details he dismissed, softened territorial disputes, and rearranged the kingdom around weaknesses he had rarely admitted. The mate bond stirred. Darius closed his eyes. Somewhere beyond the eastern boundary, Nora existed at the other end of that connection. The ache of distance had remained since her carriage left Silver Vale. Instinct pushed him toward the bond. Reach. Find her. Make sure she is there. His wolf pressed harder. Darius opened his eyes. No. For 7 years, the bond had been a door neither of them questioned, because it had always been open. Now, it was not his to enter simply because he wanted reassurance. He let the pressure ease without reaching for her. At the neutral estate, Nora stopped halfway through reviewing a medical form. Something brushed the edge of the bond. Not words. Not a thought. Presence. Darius. Her breath caught. For one heartbeat, the familiar pull sharpened, and her wolf surged toward it so quickly Nora's hand tightened around the pen. Then it withdrew. Nora remained still. Dr. Elian, seated across the room, glanced up. Pain? No. She looked down at the unfinished form. Darius had stopped himself. She would not turn one act of restraint into proof of change. She had spent too many years confusing potential with character. Still, she had noticed. A knock came at the door. A neutral court clerk entered, carrying a sealed folder. Luna Whitmore, this arrived from Frostmere for verification. Nora frowned. What is it? A treaty authorization. She took the folder and broke the seal. The first page carried Frostmere's crest, Silver Vale's diplomatic code, and her own full signature at the bottom. Nora read the date. This morning. Her pulse slowed. She had signed nothing that morning. Nothing since leaving the palace. Elian stood when he saw her face. Nora? She turned the document toward the light. The signature was perfect. Too perfect. Someone inside Silver Vale had just used her name after she had already walked away from the throne. The forged treaty stayed on Nora's desk for an hour before she touched it again. At first glance, nothing looked wrong. Frostmere's crest was genuine. Silvervale's diplomatic code matched the winter sequence. Even the pressure marks beneath her signature looked convincing. But the second paragraph bothered her. Nora read it aloud. In consideration of crown stability, Frostmere shall accept revised grain priority without territorial consultation. Dr. Elian Hart looked up from the chair near the window. That sounds official. It sounds like someone trying to sound like me. She tapped the sentence. I never use crown stability in treaty language. It gives the throne too much room to reinterpret an agreement later. So the signature is false. The document is false. I can prove the wording isn't mine. I cannot prove how they moved money or who authorized it. That distinction mattered. By afternoon, the neutral court sent Auditor Celia Ward, a compact woman in her 40s who carried 3 ledgers and no interest in royal titles. She asked Nora for every version of the Frostmere agreement, then spent nearly 2 hours comparing authorization codes. Nora did not interrupt. This was not diplomacy. It was accounting, and pretending expertise she did not have would only create another mistake. Finally, Celia slid 1 page across the table. Here. Nora leaned closer. A single emergency disbursement had been attached to the forged treaty, small enough to avoid automatic review, large enough to matter. What was it for? Security transport. For grain? That is why I kept looking. Celia placed another sheet beside it. The money did not go to Frostmere. It moved through a Crown emergency account, then into a private contractor used by Royal Security. Nora felt cold settle beneath her skin. How much? This transfer? Not much. Do not give me the comforting answer. Celia met her eyes. It is the only transfer I can prove is tied to this forged document. I am not going to invent a larger conspiracy because the pattern is suspicious. Nora nodded. 1 document. 1 trail. 1 fact. That was enough. Who can authorize the account? I am still verifying that. At Silvervale Palace, Darius received a different problem. The neutral court may classify Nora as a potential signatory to the forged order until they verify the fraud, Beta Rowan said. Darius stood over the council table. She did not sign it. You know that. I know her handwriting. That is not legal evidence. Darius's wolf pushed hard beneath his skin. Send 6 crown guards to the neutral estate. Rowan did not move. Darius looked at him. Now. Then he saw the copy of the maternal stability order. His own seal stared back at him. Send guards. Secure her. Bring the situation under control. The instinct felt natural enough to be dangerous. Darius closed his hand over the table. No. Rowan waited. Darius pulled a blank authorization sheet toward him. What are you doing? Correcting the order. He wrote slowly. Royal jurisdiction waived in all matters concerning the investigation of Nora Whitmore. Subject retains full authority to select legal, medical, and physical protection. Rowan read it twice. You understand this prevents Crown security from taking custody, even if the investigation becomes hostile. Yes, Sabine will object. I did not ask Sabine. Darius signed, then added 1 line beneath the legal text. She decides who protects her. The document reached Nora before sunset. She recognized Darius's signature immediately. Her eyes moved down the page. Royal jurisdiction waived. Full authority. Then the handwritten line. She decides who protects her. For several seconds, Nora stared. Elian, standing near the fireplace, said, "That is new." "Yes. Does it change anything?" Nora folded the paper once. "It changes this. Not everything. Not the order he had already signed. Not the humiliation in the Great Hall. Not the gate he had tried to close. But this time, Darius had been given a chance to take control of her protection, and he had stepped back. That night, Nora could not sleep. The neutral estate was silent except for wind against the windows. She lay on her side with 1 hand beneath her stomach and felt the distant ache of the mate bond. Darius was awake. She did not know how she knew beyond the simple pressure of his presence at the other end of the connection. No thoughts came through, no words, only the same restless awareness that kept her staring into the dark. Her fingers moved toward the communication stone on the bedside table. Stopped. Miles away, Darius sat alone in his study with Nora's old ledger open in front of him. His hand rested beside his own communication stone. Neither of them reached. The bond remained between them, warm enough to hurt and quiet enough to leave every choice intact. The next morning, Celia returned with one page. "I verified the account authority." Nora stood. "Who?" Celia turned the document around. At the bottom of the security authorization was a single name: Alpha King, Darius's younger half-brother, the Royal Security Chancellor. The name, Alpha King, stayed in Nora's mind all the way to the neutral court. Royal Security Chancellor. Darius's younger half-brother, the man whose office sat beneath the only money trail connected to the forged treaty. Nora refused to decide what that meant before she had facts. The hearing room was built for arbitration, not spectacle. Pale stone walls, one long table, no throne. Auditor Celia Ward sat at one end with the forged treaty and account authorization sealed beneath evidence glass. Beto Rowan stood near the door. Darius was already there. The mate bond reacted before Nora could prepare for him. Heat tightened beneath her ribs. Her wolf surged forward with painful recognition, and for one treacherous second, the room smelled less like cold stone and more like cedar, winter rain, and the private chambers she had left behind. He looked as though he had not slept. The observation came before Nora could stop it. She knew the shadow beneath his eyes, the rigid set of his shoulders, the way exhaustion made him hold himself even straighter. Knowing him remained effortless. Trusting him did not. Darius looked at her belly first, then at her face. He took one step toward her. Nora's shoulders stiffened. He stopped. "May I come closer?" he asked. No. Something moved in his expression, but he stayed where he was. "All right." 2 words. Nothing more. Nora hated how much they mattered. Celia opened the hearing. "We are not here to determine guilt. We are here to establish whether the forged Frostmere authorization creates a legal threat to Lady Whitmore or the unborn heir." She placed the account record beside the treaty. "The only verified financial link leads to a royal security discretionary account." Darius looked at Rowan. "Alaric has independent access." "Yes," Rowan said. "For emergency operations." "Who else?" "You." 2 deputies under restricted conditions. Nora looked at Darius. "Did you authorize the transfer?" "No." The answer came immediately. She believed him, not because of the bond, but because the transaction time placed him in the Great Hall before 200 witnesses. Celia turned another document toward them. "This is where the account intersects with succession law." Nora recognized the charter. 3 years earlier, after a border crisis exposed gaps in succession procedure, Nora had helped draft continuity provisions for Silver Vale. If a monarch became incapacitated while the heir was still a minor, temporary authority had to pass somewhere. The Royal Security Chancellor was listed first. Nora sat back slowly. Darius saw her face. "What is it?" "I wrote this clause." He looked down. "If the monarch is removed or declared incompetent before the heir reaches majority, the Security Chancellor can assume temporary regency until Confederation review." Rowan went still. Darius's gaze hardened. "Alaric, maybe?" Nora said. His eyes snapped to hers. "We have one forged treaty, one money trail, and a law I wrote years ago. That is not proof he planned everything. He is attached to all 3. Suspicion is not proof." Darius started toward the table, then stopped himself before crossing the distance Nora had refused him. That restraint landed harder than anger would have. Celia adjourned the legal portion until the account could be reviewed under neutral authority. Rowan left with her. Darius remained. Nora should have gone too. Instead, She stayed. The room changed once they were alone. The bond pulsed between them, carrying attraction, hurt, and the old instinct to close distance. Darius kept his hands at his sides. Nora. She looked at him. I need you to understand that whatever Alaric has done... No. He stopped. Do not start there. His jaw tightened. You signed the order before we knew any of this, she said. Before the forged treaty, before the account, before Alaric became a question. I know. Then answer what you avoided at the palace. Why did you sign it? To keep you safe. Nora's expression did not change. He looked away. Safe from what? Silence. Was I dangerous? No. Was our child unsafe with me? No. Did I threaten to leave Silver Vale? No. Then what were you protecting? The bond tightened. Darius's control finally cracked not into command, but fear. Nora felt only the emotion, not the thoughts behind it. He looked at her again. Because I thought you might leave. Nora went still. If I removed you from diplomacy, if travel required crown approval, he swallowed. I thought I could make sure you stayed long enough for us to fix whatever was happening. You mean long enough for me to stop wanting to go? Yes. And if I didn't? His voice dropped. I didn't know how to stop you. There it was. Not Sabine. Not Alaric. Him. Darius forced himself to meet her eyes. I didn't know how to stop you if you decided you were done with me. The mate bond pulled so hard Nora almost hated herself for still loving him. Almost. She took a slow breath. And you turned that fear into law. Yes. For the first time since the Great Hall, Nora wanted to cross the space between them. She did not. Love was still there. Trust was not. She gathered her papers. Nora. She paused at the door. Darius did not ask her to stay. That mattered too. By the time she reached the neutral estate, Rowan's communication stone was flashing red. Nora answered, Sabine Mercer is gone. Nora stopped. What happened? We don't know yet. A second voice spoke behind him, breathless. Then Rowan said, The Royal Archive vault was opened after midnight. Nora looked down at the forged signature inside her evidence case. Sabine had disappeared, and someone had gone looking for the originals. Sabine contacted the neutral court just before dusk. She did not ask Nora to meet her alone. She asked for protection. A court courier arrived at the estate carrying a plain envelope with one line written inside. I took something from the archive. Alaric will know what it is. Dr. Elian Hart read the note over Nora's shoulder. At least she has improved the quality of her bad decisions. Nora folded it. Where is she? At an arbitration house 2 miles from here, the courier said. Under neutral guard. Nora went with Celia Ward and 2 court officers. For the first time since the winter convergence, Sabine did not look composed. Her hair was pinned badly, her coat was damp from melted snow, and a leather case sat on the table in front of her. You came, Sabine said. You asked the court for protection. I knew you would hear about it. Nora remained standing. Why did you leave the palace? Sabine looked at the case. Because Alaric never intended to make me Luna. She wanted consideration in exchange for cooperation. Nora refused to bargain with authority she did not possess. So Celia recorded the request and told her to speak. Sabina did. I wanted your position, she said. I wanted Darius to see you as a liability. I gave him reports that emphasized your disagreements with counsel. I delayed information that would have made your decisions look reasonable. I let him believe your influence was becoming something he needed to contain. And the forged treaty? I gave Alaric access to archived signatures. Celia's expression hardened. Sabine continued. I thought he wanted enough pressure to remove you from office. I thought Darius would turn to me when you were gone. Nora held her gaze. Did Alaric tell Darius to sign the maternal stability order? No. Did you? Sabine hesitated, then answered. No. Did either of you force him to announce me unfit? No. The answers hurt, but they were clean. Darius's choices remained Darius's. Sabine opened the leather case and removed a small recording crystal. "This is what I took. Alaric will know. It is missing as soon as the archive inventory is checked." Celia activated it. Alaric's voice filled the room. "Darius only needs to do what Darius always does when he is afraid: tighten his grip, remove Nora, invoke emergency authority if the territories resist. Once the Confederation questions his competence, the rest becomes procedural." Sabine's recorded voice answered. "And Nora? Politically isolated. The child, a pauser, an heir without a stable monarch, requires a regent." The crystal went dark. No fourth document. No hidden accomplice. The plan was finally simple enough to see. Alaric had needed Darius to overreach. Darius had done that part himself. Celia sealed the crystal into an evidence pouch and ordered Sabine transferred to a protected courtroom for formal testimony. Nora returned to the neutral estate with Elian. Less than an hour later, someone knocked at the outer gate. "Royal security," a voice called. "Protective custody order for Nora Whitmore." Nora stopped in the corridor. The timing no longer felt random. If Alaric knew the recording was missing, he knew Sabine had fled with evidence capable of ending his plan. Nora was the other person who could connect that evidence to the forged treaty and the Regency clause. A neutral officer checked the document through the gate slot. "It carries a royal security seal." Celia, still at the estate to secure the evidence transfer, frowned. "No custody request has been approved." The mate bond tightened suddenly beneath Nora's ribs. Alarm moved through it. Not information, not direction, only a distant surge strong enough to sharpen her own fear. At Silvervale Palace, Darius gripped the edge of the council table as Nora's distress struck the bond. His first instinct was immediate. Find her. Send the guard. Bring her somewhere he could control. His hand moved toward the command stone, then stopped. The last time fear had spoken that clearly, he had turned it into law. Darius looked at Rowan. "Contact the neutral court. Give them every active royal security authentication code." Rowan stared at him. "That exposes Crown operations." "For long enough to verify the order." "And the guard?" Darius's wolf pushed hard beneath his skin. "Crown guard stays inside Silvervale jurisdiction. If Nora is in danger, then the people she chose to protect her handle it." The words cost him. He said them anyway. Back at the estate, Celia's communication crystal flashed. She listened, then handed the authentication list to the officer. The custody document failed immediately. Copied seal. Invalid active code. When the men outside realized the gate would not open, they tried to force it. Neutral response officers already moving from the nearby arbitration house closed the road behind them. The false security team surrendered without a fight worth naming. No Crown soldiers crossed the boundary. Later, Celia handed Nora the communication record. Darius's authorization stood at the top. Full code access granted for verification. No Crown territorial claim. Nora read it twice. He had felt her distress and possessed enough power to make her fear an excuse for taking control again. Instead, he had given control away. The mate bond warmed faintly beneath her ribs. Nora did not call that forgiveness, but she could no longer call it nothing. The recording was authenticated before noon. That should have made the room feel easier. It did not. Nora sat across from Darius in a neutral conference chamber, while Celia Ward sealed the crystal into evidence. There were no guards inside, no council members, no Sabine, no Alaric. Just pale stone walls, a narrow table, and the man Nora had spent 7 years learning well enough to mistake familiarity for safety. Celia gathered her papers. "The court has what it needs. I'll file the verification." When the door closed behind her, silence settled. The mate bond had been restless since Darius entered. Not loud, not invasive, familiar. It carried the ache of proximity after days apart, the pull of a body remembering what the mind refused to trust. Nora kept both hands around a glass of water. Darius sat several feet away. He had asked where she wanted him to sit. That still felt strange. "You can stop looking at the door," Nora said. His gaze returned to her. "I wasn't. You were." A faint breath of humor touched his face and vanished. "You still notice everything. I used to make a profession of it." The words landed between them. Darius looked down at his hands. "Sabine told me you were becoming too independent, that the territorial alphas listened to you before they listened to the crown, that you were building influence I couldn't control. Was she wrong?" He looked up. "They did listen to me," Nora said. "I did have influence." "Yes, and that frightened you." Darius took a slow breath. "Yes." There was no argument in the answer, no correction. Nora waited. He continued. "I told myself I was protecting the kingdom from instability. I told myself pregnancy changed the risks. But underneath all of it," his jaw tightened, "I was afraid one day you would realize you didn't need me." The bond shifted with something raw enough to make Nora's chest ache. She did not move. "You could walk into a room full of hostile alphas and make them listen," Darius said. "You made people trust you. That was my job." "I know. Do you? Because what you did wasn't fear that I was bad at my job. You were afraid I was good at it." He closed his eyes for a moment. "Yes." The honesty hurt more cleanly than denial would have. Nora looked toward the window. "For years I thought if I handled enough, fixed enough, remembered enough, there would never be a reason for anything to fall apart." Darius stayed silent. "I knew when you had not eaten. I knew which council members could provoke you. I rewrote reports before they reached you because I knew which phrasing would make you angry. I solved problems before you saw them." Her fingers tightened around the glass. "I thought that was love." "It was love," Darius said. "Partly." Nora swallowed. "The rest was fear." He waited. "I thought being needed made me safe. If I was useful enough, no one would have a reason to leave me behind." Darius's face went still. Nora gave a small, bitter laugh. "So, I spent years making you look like the king I wanted you to become." He flinched. "I covered your weaknesses so well that sometimes even you didn't know they were there. I knew you helped me." "No. You knew I was there. That isn't the same thing." The bond pulsed once. Warm and painful. Darius did not reach for it. "I'm sorry," he said. Nora looked at him because he did not follow the apology with an explanation. He simply let it stand. After a while, Darius spoke again. "I still love you." There it was. No crown behind it. No order. No child between them. Just the truth. Nora felt her wolf rise beneath her skin, answering the mate it still recognized. Desire moved through the bond like warmth returning to a frozen hand. She could have shut it down. Instead, she let herself feel it. Only feel it. "I still love you too." Darius stopped breathing. The bond surged. He stayed where he was. Nora watched him fight every instinct that once would have brought him across the room. Then she said, "That doesn't make you safe for me." The warmth between them settled into something quieter. Darius nodded. "I know." He had never been good at sitting still with pain. Darius solved problems by moving toward them, commanding them, forcing them into shape. Now he stayed in the chair because Nora had not invited him closer, and the restraint itself felt more intimate than touch. "You don't get to turn my love into proof that what happened can be undone. I know. You don't get to decide that because I miss you, I'm ready to come back. I know." Nora searched his face. There was grief, longing, shame, but no demand. Darius leaned back. "Then I have work to do. Not win you back, not convince you, just work." For the first time since leaving Silver Vale, hope frightened Nora more than anger. A hard knock sounded at the door. Celia stepped inside holding a sealed notice. "The Confederation has accepted the petition." Darius stood. Celia placed the document on the table. "Sovereign competence hearing. 72 hours. Darius read the first line, then looked at Nora. This time, he did not ask her to save him. The summons to the sovereign competence hearing had barely reached the palace when Frostmere moved troops toward the eastern trade corridor. Not an invasion, a warning. 300 wolves took position in the disputed valley before sunrise and stopped 2 miles short of Silver Vale's watchposts. Frostmere had already suspended its grain guarantee after Nora's removal from active diplomacy. Now, Alpha Brenner, the same man who had stood up in the Great Hall when Nora walked away, was making clear that he did not trust the Crown to remain stable through the hearing. Darius read the field report once, then again. Nora stood on the opposite side of the strategy table inside the neutral command room. She had agreed to attend because she knew the treaty language governing the valley better than anyone present, not because Darius had asked her to return to the palace. Rowan pointed to the map. Brenner says the mobilization is defensive. Frostmere claims it is protecting the trade road until Silver Vale proves it still has a functioning chain of command. Darius's jaw tightened. He is testing us. Yes. A commander near the door spoke. Your Majesty, emergency authority would let us move 2 battalions before sunset. The room went quiet. Nora looked at Darius. Emergency authority. The exact kind of response Alaric's recording had predicted. Pressure arrives. Darius tightens his grip, and the Confederation receives fresh evidence that he cannot rule without seizing more control. He had the legal power. He also had 72 hours before a court decided whether he was fit to keep it. The commander continued. If Frostmere advances while we wait for territorial approval, we could lose the Eastern Road. Darius looked at Nora. What do you think? The question surprised the room more than it surprised her. Nora folded her arms. You're the king. His eyes narrowed slightly. Make the choice. For a second, she saw the old response rise in him, the irritation of a man accustomed to answering uncertainty with command. Then it passed. Darius turned back to the map. Get me Brenner. Rowan blinked. No? Yes? He may be preparing to challenge us. Then I would rather hear him say it. The commander shifted. And the battalions? Hold position. Your Majesty. No emergency decree. Darius planted both hands on the table. Send 1 defensive unit to the Eastern Road under existing authority. Silver Vale stays inside our markers. Frostmere stays outside ours. Nobody crosses unless attacked. And if Brenner refuses? Darius looked at the map for another moment. Then I find out what he wants, badly enough to put 300 wolves in a valley before I decide every sword in Silver Vale needs to belong to me. Nora said nothing. The communication crystal lit 20 minutes later. Alpha Brenner's image appeared above it. Your Majesty. Brenner. I assume this is about my wolves. I assume you put them there so I would call. Brenner's mouth twitched. Your wife always did understand me faster. Nora felt Darius glance at her. He did not react to the provocation. What do you want? Written assurance that Silver Vale will not close the Eastern Trade Road if the Confederation suspends you during the hearing, and neutral oversight of the valley until the succession question is resolved. Old Darius would have called the demand insulting. Nora knew because she had watched him reject weaker requests for less. This time, he asked questions. Who controlled civilian access? Who answered if a patrol crossed the line? Who withdrew first once the hearing ended? The negotiation lasted nearly an hour. By the end, Frostmere agreed to pull half its wolves back immediately. Silver Vale kept its battalions behind existing markers. A temporary joint patrol would protect the trade corridor under neutral observation. No emergency decree. No seized command. No bloodshed. When the crystal went dark, Rowan exhaled. Darius rubbed one hand across the back of his neck. I hated every minute of that. Nora's mouth moved before she could stop it. You handled it well. He looked at her. That sounded dangerously close to praise. It was an observation. I remember those. A faint smile touched his mouth. The mate bond warmed. Nora let herself feel the warmth instead of immediately pushing it away. It was not permission for anything else. It was only a feeling she had chosen not to reject. Darius seemed to notice the change. He stayed where he was. The others left gradually until only the 2 of them remained beside the map. Darius picked up the unsigned emergency decree. You were right about something. Only one thing? His smile returned briefly. I almost signed this. Nora looked at the paper. What stopped you? He considered the question. Nothing stopped me. She waited. I chose not to. The distinction settled between them. Nora nodded. That matters. Darius held her gaze. Does it? Yes. She gave him nothing more. He did not press. The hearing opened the next morning in the Confederation Hall. No throne stood behind Darius. Nora sat with the neutral witnesses, neither beside him nor against him. Alaric entered under guard escort, still wearing the dark insignia of royal security pending judgment. The presiding elder called the chamber to order. Alaric rose. My petition does not depend on rumor, he said, nor does it depend on anything I may be accused of doing. Darius's face hardened. Alaric turned toward him. The strongest evidence against Darius Vane is not anything I fabricated. The chamber went still. Alaric looked at Nora. It is what he actually did to his own Luna. The strongest evidence against Darius Vane is not anything I fabricated. Alaric's gaze remained on Nora. It is what he actually did to his own Luna. The words remained in the Confederation Hall after Alaric sat down. Darius did not look at him. He looked at Nora. For 1 second, the mate bond tightened between them, carrying a sharp pulse of shame and something heavier beneath it. Nora let it pass through her without answering. She had not come to save him from the truth. The presiding elder raised one hand. We will separate 2 questions. First, whether Chancellor Alaric Vane participated in a conspiracy against the crown. Second, whether Alpha King Darius Vane remains competent to rule. That distinction changed the room. Alaric's expression finally shifted. Celia Ward presented the forged Frostmere Treaty first. She did not dramatize it. She showed the copied signature, the false authorization, and the single emergency disbursement linked to the document. Then came the royal security money trail. 1 transfer, 1 account, 1 verified chain leading to Alaric's office. Finally, Sabine Mercer's recording crystal was placed beneath the evidence lens. Alaric's own voice filled the chamber. Darius only needs to do what Darius always does. When he is afraid, tighten his grip. The recording continued through the plan. Remove Nora. Provoke emergency authority. Let the Confederation question Darius's competence. Then place the unborn heir under a regency. When the crystal went dark, no one spoke for several seconds. Alaric leaned forward, a private conversation taken without context. The court will determine context, the elder said. Sabine was called next. She looked smaller without royal colors. Did you provide Alpha King Vane with selective reports about Nora Whitmore? The elder asked. Yes. Did you delay information favorable to her? Dud. Yes. Did you want her removed from political authority? Yes. Did you give Chancellor Vane access to archived signatures? Sabine's face tightened. Yes. The elder paused. Did you order Darius Vane to sign the maternal stability order? No. Did Chancellor Vane order him to sign it? No. Did either of you force him to declare Nora Whitmore unfit before the winter convergence? No. Nora felt the room shift again. The conspiracy was real. So was Darius's choice. The elder turned toward him. Alpha King Vane. Stand. Darius rose. Without the throne behind him, he looked no less powerful. That was almost the point. Power had never been the question. What he believed power entitled him to was. The elder placed a copy of the maternal stability order on the evidence table. Did anyone force you to sign this? Darius's voice was steady. No. Did Nora Whitmore threaten the life or health of your unborn child? No. Did she threaten to abandon Silver Vale? No. Did she attempt to remove the heir from Crown territory before you signed this order? No. Then, why did you restrict her travel, medical choice, and diplomatic movement? The hall seemed to narrow around him. Darius looked at Nora. The bond opened wider, not because either of them reached for the other, but because the emotion he had been containing finally had nowhere left to hide. Shame, grief, love, fear. No command, no demand. He faced the elder again. Because I was afraid she would leave me. I believed being her mate and being her king gave me the right to prevent it. A murmur moved through the chamber. Darius continued before anyone could interrupt. I was wrong. The elder watched him. Were you manipulated by Sabine Mercer? Yes. Were you deceived by your brother? Yes. Did those things cause you to sign the order? Darius was silent for one breath. Then he said, No. His gaze returned to Nora. No one made me do it. Nothing followed. No explanation. No defense. The sentence stood alone. Nora's throat tightened. For months, she had wanted him to understand what he had done. She had imagined anger, apology, even regret. She had not imagined this. Darius was not asking the court to separate him from his worst decision. He was claiming it. The memory of the Eastern Gate came back with brutal clarity. Iron beginning to move, guards caught between law and command. Darius standing behind her as if authority could close the distance she had already chosen. He did not look like that man now. Nora was not ready to forgive him for becoming that man. But she could see that he was no longer hiding from him. The judges withdrew for less than an hour. When they returned, Alaric was ordered held pending criminal judgment on conspiracy, falsification, and misuse of royal security funds. Sabine's cooperation would be considered separately. Then the presiding elder turned to Darius. Exposure of a conspiracy does not erase abuse of royal authority. Darius lowered his head once. I understand. The Confederation will not restore recognition under the existing crown structure. Rowan inhaled sharply behind him. The elder continued. You may retain the throne only if Silvervale adopts the proposed crown charter immediately. A clerk placed the document before Darius. The charter limited emergency authority, placed maternal autonomy beyond unilateral crown control, and required shared territorial review for future suspension of lunar authority. Darius read the first page, then the second. Nora watched him carefully. He could refuse. He could argue that Alaric had engineered the crisis. He could appeal to tradition, bloodline, military necessity, alpha law. Instead, Darius picked up the pen. He did not look at Nora. That mattered more than she expected. He signed the charter. The scratch of the pen was almost lost beneath the silence. The elder took the document. By Confederation law, Darius Vane remains Alpha King of Silver Vale under the authority of the Crown Charter. No applause followed. Darius stepped away from the table. For the first time since Nora had known him, he had surrendered power without knowing what the surrender would buy him. Not the throne. He kept that. Here, he had no guarantee of that at all. Their eyes met across the chamber. The mate bond remained open between them, warm with everything neither could repair in a single hearing. Darius did not reach for her. Nora did not move toward him. But for the first time, she believed the change she was seeing might belong to him, even if she never came back. 4 months after the hearing, labor began 3 days before Nora's due date. By sunrise, Dr. Ilian Hart had moved her into the neutral healer wing. By noon, the mate bond had become impossible to ignore. Darius felt her distress surge through it and came to the outer corridor before anyone summoned him. He stopped at the protective boundary. Elian emerged once. She is stable. And the baby? Strong. Darius let out a breath. Do you want me to ask if she wants you inside? Yes. A few minutes later, Elian returned. She said no. Pain crossed Darius's face. He nodded. Then I stay here. He did. Hours later, Nora's son entered the world furious and loud. When Elian finally told Darius that both mother and child were safe, the Alpha King sat down against the corridor wall and covered his face. The next afternoon, Nora allowed a supervised visit. Darius stood beside the cradle with none of the certainty he carried into council chambers. May I hold him? Nora watched him for a moment. Yes. That was where fatherhood began. It did not decide what happened between them. 2 years passed. Darius remained Alpha King under the Crown Charter, and Nora became Chief Treaty Commissioner with her own residence and work. They learned how to occupy the same rooms without using their son as an excuse to do it. Darius's changes survived ordinary days, disagreements, distance, and the absence of an audience. Nora noticed. She did not hurry. After a Confederation dinner one winter evening, she found him alone on the terrace. Silver veil glowed below them. Distant lights scattered across the valley. The cold turned their breath white. Darius looked over when she stepped outside. "You escaped. So did you. I was told kings are expected to enjoy formal dinners. You were lied to." A smile touched his mouth. Nora moved to the railing beside him, leaving comfortable space between them. For a while, neither spoke. The mate bond rested quietly beneath everything else. It was still there, familiar and alive, but no longer felt like a rope being pulled from either end. Darius looked out over the valley. 2 years ago, I would have asked when you were coming home. Nora turned her head. And now? Now I know home isn't a place I get to choose for you. He faced her. I love you. She let the words settle. I want you. I miss you. I miss being your mate in ways that have nothing to do with councils or our son. His voice lowered. None of that gives me a claim. The honesty reached Nora before the bond did. Is friendship all you want? Darius gave a quiet laugh. No. Good. His eyebrows lifted. It would have been a terrible answer. It would also have been a lie. The old attraction was still there. Nora could feel it in the warmth under her skin, in the way she knew exactly how close he was without looking, in the part of her that remembered his hands and his mouth and 7 years of belonging to one another. Darius did not move. Wanting more and being entitled to more aren't the same thing, he said. Nora studied him. For years, she had measured love by usefulness. Darius had measured it by possession. They had both spent too long confusing fear with devotion. The mate bond warmed, answering her awareness of him. It did not make the decision. Nora did. She stepped across the space between them. Darius went still. Nora reached for his hand. He left his fingers open until she threaded hers through them. I'm not coming back to the woman I was. I don't want you to. I'm not moving back into the palace. All right. I'm not promising forever. I know. She searched his face for the reflex she used to know so well, the need to secure the answer, define the future, make uncertainty obey him. It did not come. Darius simply waited. Nora tightened her fingers around his. I'm willing to find out who we are now. Something softened in his expression, but he did not close the remaining distance. So Nora did. She rose onto her toes, placed her free hand against his chest, and kissed him. The choice came first. Only then did the mate bond flare warm between them, bright with recognition. Darius answered the kiss without pulling her closer than she had chosen to be. When Nora stepped back, he let her go. His forehead nearly touched hers, but he stopped short. What happens now? Nora smiled. Now you ask me to dinner. Darius laughed, and the sound carried across the terrace. Nora Whitmore, would you have dinner with me? She let him wait 1 heartbeat. Yes. He offered his hand. Nora looked at it, then placed hers in his. They left the terrace, side by side. Not Luna following her king, not a woman returning to the life she had escaped. Nora had chosen the distance between them once because she needed to survive it. Now she chose to cross part of it because she wanted to. For the first time, that was enough.